The man wearing the Canada hoodie is not Matthew Canada, as it would be ridiculous for someone to wear a hoodie with their name on it.
I understand this is enormously confusing and coincidental, but apparently it is mere coincidence.
Judge's Familiar is going to start things off here. Ketter going to start off with a Temple of Abandon. He's going to put that top card onto the bottom, going to pass the turn back.
And the Temple of Abandon playing Scrylands number 5 and 6 in Kent's list.
All right, well, Judge's Familiar is where things are going to start. That'll be our first damage here in the quarterfinals. Don't forget, after this game is over, we'll be bringing it back to the booth to ask a trivia question for you guys. I'll explain the rules, and Patrick, will you be ready with the question?
Yeah, I'll get it done.
All right. See a Tidebinder Mage
I'm
here
on it.
on an empty board. Mountain from Ketter into a Frostburn Weird. So Tidebinder Mage is not going to tap that down, but it leads me to believe that maybe Canada has a backup Tidebinder Mage to tap something down. We'll see. So he does draw a copy of Frostburn Weird. Here is another white-bordered island. Going to follow this up with a Nightveil Spectre. In comes the Judge's Familiar. Going to knock Ketter down to 18. So pretty good start here for Canada.
Yeah, both players, so far so good. Pretty reasonable, conventional starts.
Temple of Abandon number 2 going to come in. Ketter going to roll up his sleeves before it's time to scry. See what he's able to find here. Now, of course, he does have to be a little careful because the Nightveil Spectre is going to come across here. So he can put a mystery card either to the top or bottom. You know, he can make the top card actually known information to him and give it to Canada, or you can put that card to the bottom and the mystery card will be laying on top. We'll see.
Scrying against Nightveil Spectre, I think, is a place where a lot of players get tripped up. They forget that that's a sequence that's about to happen. And this is why being on the play is so important. Ken's draw on the play here, far better than on the draw. Matthew might just get out in front of him too fast.
Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like right now. You see Ketter's hand. Looks like he's got a Burn Trimmers here. I potentially hang out there. He's got a Boros Reckoner, but he's not doing anything too crazy. He needs to find a Nykthos. He needs to find one pretty quick here and really start to try to pull ahead from a mana advantage standpoint, as Canada does actually have a Nykthos in his hand. So he could do some crazy things here because he's got access to, you know, if he plays Nykthos, Devotion is 6.
So 6 in his pool currently.
So that's going to be a Thassa, which is alive. And now
Oh,
Biden.
wow.
That's a good start to a top 8. My goodness.
I mean, you couldn't script it any better than this if you can.
No. Top card going to come his way. Mountain's going to go over there. 2 cards are going to come from the Biden, too. This is an insane draw. You see the power of Mono Blue Devotion here. As Ketter's going to take a draw, he draws a Temple of Triumph. And again, a lot of his lands are just coming in to play tapped. So you see the opportunity cost associated with playing more Scrylands. Most of them are just going to have 4 Temple of Triumphs, maybe a Boros Guildgate or 2. But you see, Ketter does have even more here with those Temple of Abandons.
His hand just doesn't let him do anything about this opening.
No. I mean, Boros Reckoner is going to come in, but with Nykthos out there, he can make every creature of his unblockable for the rest of the game with Thassa. Let's not forget Thassa's going to allow Canada to scry. Looks like he may have forgotten a scry there, just adding the island to his hand right away, but I'm not sure it's going to matter.
Yeah. I mean, he's making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana through Nykthos right now.
That's it.
No big. So he can add a double blue spell, which he's going to, which is essentially free, as that mana just gets reconverted into Nykthos.
So that's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 blue. -1 is 10. -2 is 8. Tap your Boros Reckoner. Unblock him with my Thassa. Unblock him with my Tidebinder Mage. This draw's insane.
I've never seen a Mono Blue Devotion draw this good in my life.
Yeah.
This is the best one I've ever seen.
This is the best one I've seen. I don't know how often this happens. This might be on the regular for Sam Black. I have no idea, but this is the best draw I've seen this deck ever put out before. This is absolutely insane. I don't think there's just no coming back from this.
Well, let's think about this. How many Judges Familiars are in play? 2?
2.
So if he draws a Nykthos, then he has 5, 6. Yeah, he can't pay for the Judges Familiars with a Mortars. I don't even think he has a Mortars.
Yeah, neither do I.
This is all theory crafting. I mean, let's not forget, Matthew's drawn however many extra cards this game off of the Biden.
Ketter is going to predictably pack it in, and I don't even think you can be upset about a loss like that because, honestly, what are you going to do when someone draws that well?
No, there's not a lot to be done. There is not a lot to be done.
So Matthew Canada is going to win game number 1 here between Mono Blue Devotion and Red White Devotion. And momentarily, we'll be coming back to the booth for you guys here. Of course, we'll be taking a look at our sideboards and all of that stuff. But don't forget for your tweets at SCG Live, hashtag SCGCOL, as we make our way through the final matches of the evening. Of course, when we do have our updates, we'll be sending them over to you between our Green-Red Devotion versus Green-Red Monsters mirror. Basically a mirror match. We've got Red-White Devotion versus Blue-Red Control, and we've got our Orzhov mirror between our 7 and 2 seeds, Andrew Kellogg and William Stedham. As we are going to bring it back over here to us, trivia time, of course. Get your Twitters ready. Hashtag SCG Premium at SCG Live. Make sure you're following over there. Very simply, Patrick's going to ask you a question. Hashtag SCG Premium, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinal match. Of all our matches, excuse me. 3 months of premium being given away. My friend, our first one of the weekend. Make it an easy one.
Kent, our Red Devotion player, with a little bit of weight in his deck, has a god in his deck.
Okay.
Name that god.
Oh, that's an easy one.
That's an easy. That's a softball.
He actually did what I asked. He asked an easy question.
Saw her off easy, man. If you don't know this one, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't think you should win if you don't know this one.
Right.
I think that's how that works. Hashtag SCG Premium at SCG Live, as we're going to send it back to the match. That's where your answer will go. Conclusion here at the semifinal round. Sideboards, my friend. Let's take a look at them.
Well, Matthew Canada has some pretty good cards for the matchup here. He has an additional copy of a single copy of Curse of the Swine and 2 domestications. Anything that can break up the devotion count of the red deck is pretty valuable to have. And domestication is especially well suited to taking a bunch of 2 and 3 power creatures. He has 2 negates, 2 Bidens, an Aetherling, a rapid hybridization, a Cyclonic Rift, additional Jace. So he has the ability to break up Kent's action even further. It's not as reliable as the Curse of the Swine and the 2 copies of Domestication, but he has additional tools as well if he wants to try to suppress his board even further.
And what do you have on the other side?
A 4th copy of Chain of the Rocks, 2 Wear and Tears, 2 Assemble Legion, 3 Anger of the Gods, 3 War Leaders Heroics, and 4 Boros Charms. I think you might see him go to the War Leaders Heroics for additional removal. He'll certainly want the other chain. Maybe he wants 2 copies of Wear and Tear here for additional removal for Bidens, but a pretty narrow set of cards.
All right, there's your options right there. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties in our match, and with my allergies here, unbelievable. This is crazy. I've had these problems with my eyes all day long, but fighting through it here as we take a look at our 2 players here shuffling up. Canada on your left, Ketter on your right. For Ketter, yeah, all you need to do is hope your opponent doesn't draw that well again.
Yeah, and Kent got off to a pretty slow start here. He didn't have Nykthos, no removal spells, so he can certainly do better with his draws, that's for sure. And Matthew can't, it would be impossible for Matthew to do any better.
Yeah. Outside of maybe even would Master always made that draw better or worse? Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but we're splitting hairs here. That was a nut draw. And you can see often, you see the 1 Nykthos get cut from these Blue Devotion lists, and you can see sometimes why it's awesome, especially in conjunction with Thassa in boards that get gummed down, or if your opponent just doesn't provide any resistance in the first couple turns, your board builds up, you can make an advantage that just avalanches. You can take control of the game and never give it up. There is a cost, of course. The deck is playing double blue spells on turn 2 and triple blue spells on turn 3. So drawing a colorless land early on in the game can mess up some of your early pacing, but in that spot, you did see the power of the 1 Nykthos.
The 1 Nykthos is... After playing with the deck, and I've been playing it online with the 1 Nykthos, I was kind of wondering why it was in there as opposed to just another island. But the ability to actually have a draw like that, I think, is the reason just by itself that makes it worth it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a conservative deck builder when it comes to mana, and when I have that much double blue and triple blue in my deck, I would look at a list like that. My instinct would be to just remove the Nykthos for an extra island, but I can definitely see 1 being correct. I think a second one is a really big cost. I would definitely disagree with having a second one, but the first one in spots like that is incredible.
No, yeah, I think the 1-ofs in this deck are absolutely fantastic. I mean, all of them. If people are playing one Cyclonic Rift, one Rapid Hybridization, one Nykthos, one maybe Counterspell kind of floating around, one Domestication in the main deck. Oftentimes when covering this deck or playing against it, the 1-ofs are the cards that are just really kind of blowout city that you can't really do about. You know they exist, but what can you do about that 1-of? Nothing, realistically.
Right, you need to be... The deck can only play so many cards like that because it's a Devotion deck, it needs to have its permanence. It's a beatdown deck, it needs to have an efficient curve, but the 1 and 2 of, tricky cards that you just referenced have enormous upside. And that was a single Biden. That's in Matthew's.
That was a single Biden?
That's the single Biden. I know some players have gone up to 2 and even 3 in some cases, but that was just a 1.
Depends on the metagame, honestly. If there's a lot of mono black floating around, it's obviously fantastic. Other control decks. It's got to be nice at the fact that you actually do get to start at least one of those, though, because it is such a game-altering effect. Looks like both players are ready to go. We're going to start with the Temple of Triumph here.
Now I just kind of want to see Kent get a busted draw of his own and then a third game.
There's a Cloudfin Raptor. I mean, it is kind of a Nykthos match. Obviously, Ketter has more. His opponent does. Maybe a Burn Emissary, but it looks like an Ashel. It's going to come into the red zone here. So it's going to count it down to 18. First blood here on the red side.
Yeah, the Red Devotion is actually a fairly anemic Burning Tree Emissary deck. It just needs to go off with Nykthos so badly that it needs to play some cards like that. But there actually aren't a lot of things for it to dump its mana into. Red-green doesn't allow it to cast very much because it's all red mana symbols. But to go off with Nykthos and to enable cards like Fanatic of Mogus, you just need to have some stuff like that.
Well, let's see what the follow-up's going to be. It looks like Ketter's got a pretty good hand here this game. Not to say his hand was bad last game. He was just outclassed last game.
He was playing with normal Magic cards at a normal Magic pace last game. That was not what Matthew was up to.
Boring. Why would you do that when you can just play unfair? I guess that's what Ketter's probably done over the course of this weekend, though, with Nykthos. Said he's drawn it a lot. There's a Burning Tree Emissary. Trigger, another one. All right. Yeah, might as well just, sure, mortars that. Get that thing out of the way.
Aggressive use of the mortars there could be a little dicey if there's a Rapid Hybridization hanging out in Matthew's hand, but not that many in the list. Just appears 2 in the main and 1 additional copy in the board.
All right. Canada's going to go to 16. Now, Canada does get the opportunity here to play a Nightveil Spectre if he'd like. I think that's probably the best play just because it attempts to be the brick wall, and it works its way towards making Thassa better. So that's what he's going to cast. Or Ketter's going to take a draw step. He has a Fanatic of Mogus in his hand. He does have a land, too.
Did he bring in Anger of Gods?
It looks like that's what he drew. Not so good right now. Fanatic is. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 point fireball to the face. Canada's going to go down to 9 from that.
I'm not really that big of a fan here of saying go because there's so many domestications in Matthew's list post board, and him getting to take an untapped creature is pretty bad as you see domestication.
Him getting to take Ashel is kind of a nightmare, right?
Yeah. Even though, it's not great to lose one of your creatures, you do knock Matthew down to 5, which makes it future Fanatic lethal, and it also means that if he casts domestication, he's getting an untapped creature.
There's a Boros Reckoner. This could get really bad if Canada has another domestication. Could just get bad for a lot of reasons. Jeez, let's see what happens here. There's a draw Cyclonic Rift. That's not so bad. This might be a turn where we get to see Thassa plus Cyclonic Rift mana open. Things get a little bit hairy now. Yeah, there's Thassa, and it's active. Domestication plus Nightveil Spectre are going to do it all on their own.
And we'll see here if Matthew's willing to send in with the Nightveil Spectre. He's, as the board currently stands, has got it pretty well contained and has Cyclonic Rift up, but he still may want to hold up one more turn. And that Boros Reckoner is still kind of a pain here. I mean, he doesn't really want to eat it with Thassa. It's a lot of damage going back to him. And nothing else in play can really contain it, so.
Yeah, I mean, we might just see a very aggressive Reckoner. Perforos to draw.
Oh, boy.
Not bad. All right, so now the Red God comes into play. So we are being informed right now. Michael Williams with blue-white control does defeat Michael Kenny. Or excuse me, up a game. I apologize. The 6 seed is up a game over Red-White Devotion, which we thought was going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe in the post-board games he can get out some of his removal that's dead, some of his less efficient cards, but game 1 is definitely an uphill battle for the Red-White deck in that matchup, I feel like.
island here for Canada. He's 1 mana away from a overloaded Cyclonic Rift. Not to say that that's going to be great, but it is something to keep in mind here.
I mean, Ken has a lot of pressure between Reckoner and Perforos. Even if he does nothing else next turn except untap and attack with those two, that alone might be enough to induce a Cyclonic Rift. And of course, Ken has plenty of other creatures to work with as well.
And you just have that mana to actually activate Perforos right now too. Things are actually getting kind of tough here for Canada. Here's 3 mana. What's this going to be? Another Copy Nightveil Spectre. That resolves, of course. Going to evolve the Cloudfin Raptor. What you're going to see here, though, is it looks like these creatures, looks like that's going to go unblockable, huh? All right. Looks like Ketter's got a really good attack. Heaven forbid he draws and Nick those. Chain of the Rocks.
Also an excellent draw here.
We're looking at a lethal attack here. I think we're close, right?
Yeah, remember that he can Chain of the Rock and activate Perforos this turn, which allows his Burning Tree emissaries to attack into 2/3s. So he could, for example, Chain of the Rock the Ash Zealot and then send everything. He also has Anger the God in his hand, which is oddly, you know, it's kind of a symmetrical Wrath right now, which might play into things as well. But
so let's see what happens. Okay, so if he Chain of the Rocks, let's say Ash Zealot, there are 3 blockers. 3 biggest creatures are Perforos, Fanatic, and Boros Reckoner. So that means that the 2 Zealots would come through and be 6 points of damage, and then Reckoner, because of its ability, would deal.
He can't block the Reckoner. Basically, it has to be he has to let Reckoner and Burning Tree through.
Okay.
So he has to just chump block a bunch of stuff.
Now, of course, Ketter would lose some things in that exchange, but
yeah, that's okay. He's also in that world, still living in a world where next turn he can Anger the Gods to kill his own Boros Reckoner and deal lethal, assuming that a certain number of the creatures connect here. But since he's on chump blocking detail anyway, I would probably just chain the Ash Zealot because that can go in front of the Fanatic and survive. Everything else just has to, in essence, chump or trade.
All right, let's see what he chains. All right, so Ash Zealot's the choice. What actually might end up happening here, too, is that because Canada's going to have to block so many creatures, you might just lose Devotion for Thasha.
Oh, yeah, his whole board collapses this turn. I mean, this is a disaster. So he has 3 blocks against 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I mean, he has to block Fanatic and Perforos. So, and that leaves him again with Boros Reckoner plus Anger of God still left in his hand to deal the final damage, even if Matthew can somehow get out of this board.
Don't forget, Matthew does have that Cyclonic Rift in his hand. He took the shields down for that this turn to sneak through 5 points of damage with a Thassa, which looks like it was a pretty risky choice now, and he's just going to concede the game. So I think Ketter's going to tie it up here between him and Mr. Canada. Red-White Devotion versus Mono Blue, 3rd game.
And the Cyclonic Rift is even awkward there because it releases the Ash Zealot that's under the Chain of the Rocks as well.
Yeah, sure.
So, he had Matthew covered in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
So not a busted Nykthos draw like we saw in the first game from Matthew, but certainly Kent got his action online. He was able to turn on Devotion for Perforos and deal a bunch of damage with Fanatic and Mogus. So definitely a solid Devotion draw from Kent in that second game.
See the sideboards on the screen here between the 2 players. And Canada's going to be on the play. He's going to go back to his board one more time here. You see the Aether Lane, 2 copies of Domestication, a Cyclonic Rift, 4 Gainsays, 2 Negate, a Rapid Hybridization, a Bident of Thassa, Jace Memory Adept, and a Curse of the Swine are his options here. He's going to be on the play, so again, we don't expect to see a busted draw like we saw the first game, but maybe a little curve out draw will get the job done here again.
Oh, I think these games are all about being fast to the board. I think even your powerful hands, if they're slow, aren't really keepable because once someone's out in front of you, it's really hard to catch up. Even your sweepers don't necessarily get it done. It doesn't kill everything. It doesn't interact with the gods. A lot of the creatures are protection from red, so it's mana curve. That's the whole thing here.
On Ketter's side, 2 Assemble the Legion, a Chain of the Rocks. He's already got a couple chains in his main deck, of course. 4 Boros, Charm, 3 Warlords, Helix, 2 Wear and Tear, 3 copies of Anger of the Gods. Again, like you, I was a little surprised to see Anger of the Gods and after sideboard. It does have some functionality, of course. You can clean up, the early creatures, can clear out all the Master Wave tokens besides Master Waves itself. So it does a lot of positive things in this matchup. But I think there are some draws that can make it line up really awkwardly, as we saw in that game.
Yeah, of course, it is awkward with some of those draws. He may feel he has some inevitability advantage if he can get to the turns, turns 5 and 6, where he gets to start doing things like casting Stormbreath Dragon and overloading Mizzing Mortars. That's more powerful than the stuff that Matthew's doing. I'm not sure if that's entirely true, because Matthew has a lot of cheap and efficient cards to interact with even those lines of play. So again, I'm suspicious of Anger of the Gods, but it does have the potential. I think if it's going to be good anywhere, it's going to be good on the draw.
I'm with you.
If Matthew curves out, play some stuff, a Night Veil Spectre on the 3rd turn possibly, Anger of the Gods might really catch him off guard.
Yeah, I mean, we could see a Clawfin Tidebinder, Night Veil Spectre kind of draw,
Right.
and then Anger of the Gods looks completely insane. Probably just might end the game on the spot. No guarantee, of course, but there are definitely situations where it does come up where it's great, and there are situations like we saw in the last game where it's a super awkward draw step where we're like, did he sideboard an Anger of the Gods? And it's like, well, I mean, probably supposed to, actually.
Red White Devotion, also the list that dealt me a heartbreaking loss in the finals of my Magic Online.
Yeah.
8-man yesterday while you were asleep.
A real tough one.
It was a tough one.
To be fair, the matchup is terrible.
There is not a single card in this deck that I can beat, so I'm not saying the matchup's good, but
We get a quick update here. Bob with Green-Red Devotion up a game over Jason Hall playing Green-Red Monsters. Not too much of a surprise there, as the Devotion deck is basically goldfishing against Red Monsters.
not a lot of disruption in the first game. Post board, it gets a little different. I would still rather be on the Devotion side of the table, but game 1 on the draw. Good luck.
All right, so both players are going to lay out their 7 cards. See Ketter, a chatty cat here. Happy to be in the top 8. Does have an invitational invite now, so congratulations to him.
And remember, the Invitational is coming to Columbus this year, correct?
Yeah. There's going to be one in Columbus in Season 2. Season 1 will come to Charlotte first, then Columbus, then
New Jersey.
Jersey, then we'll come to Seattle.
Nice.
So that should be fun. One in Seattle, I won't have to go too far from. Yeah.
I think that might have been a 0 or a 1 lander that Ken was flashing the screen.
I'm going to mulligan that one. That one's not going to do it.
If you were playing the elimination rounds of a tournament and your opponent had a hoodie on that said Phillips, would that mess with you?
Yeah.
It'd be really weird, right?
It would be horribly strange. Also, the guy with the last name of Canada is wearing a Go Patriots shirt.
Yep.
This is just ridiculous.
I thought the Buffalo Bills were Canada's team to
I
the
thought
extent
so.
that Canada had a football team.
Yeah, I thought so. I think they might get a team. The game in Toronto.
But I guess
every
the CFL is also a thing still.
Depends on your definition of thing. See a cloud from
The great
excuse me,
it's a
Judge
real.
Familiar.
I've seen the CFL game on TV. It's a real thing.
Here's a Temple of Abandon. It's National Football League or nothing else, Patrick. All right. Now, are you a Seahawks fan or what?
Am I? No.
No, I didn't think so. Let's take like a big head scratcher here. He does have a Nykthos in his hand. Looks like a Stomping Ground too, maybe. So, it's actually a pretty decent hand here. Obviously, a real decision to be made with the top card of his deck. But he's got his best card in his deck in his hand in Nykthos, so he just needs to go about getting it all set up.
The straw that stirs the drink right there.
He's going to leave the card on top, pass back. Canada takes a draw. We'll see what kind of hand he's got here. Going to start by attacking for 1, put Ketter down to 19. Does have a Frostburn Weird. Looks like that's what he's going to deploy. Does have a backup one as well, so pretty good start here. See a draw. Quickly add to the hand.
He has a land, a Thassa, and a Master Wave, so his draw is just not messing around again.
There's Frostburn Weird. Pass the turn back. Oh, Ketter's going to be able to keep up this game. There's an island. Attack from 1 in the air. Going to put Ketter down to 16. And there's your Thassa. All right, all right. Let's take a draw. How do we do? There's Nykthos.
I think you found an Ash Zealot. So now he's got to decide if he needs to play to the board this turn and use something like Mizium Mortars or try to set up a big overload.
I think he's got to try to set up a big overload.
I'm with you.
He's even got Burning Tree Emissary in the grip. This feels like a Zealot turn to me. Okay, he's going to do this. 4 Perforos.
Okay, all right. These two draws are not pulling any punches.
No, not at all. Boy, oh boy. Perforos is active right now, too.
Yep.
So Perforos kind of stares in the face of Thassa. It's like, you want to fight? Top card goes to the bottom.
The gods have awoken.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let's say Frostburn Weird. It's going to be a Rift here. Oh, just unblockable. Come across for 5.
Whoa, this is running a big risk of Mizium Mortars right now.
That is aggressive play. That's another Nykthos.
Oh, boy.
The sleeves are being rolled up here.
Boy.
Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes.
For those of you not familiar, this is a lot of mana.
All right, so that's 5. Yeah, slow down. He knows he needs to play around one thing here, which is Judge Familiar on the table.
Right.
So just as long as you don't run your mortars into that, he should be okay this game.
Yeah. And remember that he gets to actually add to his board this turn as well, because every red card that he casts is essentially free because he has the other Nykthos in hand.
So this is 5 red. So there's Nash Zealot.
Now 3 red.
Trigger. There's the back, another Nykthos. 3 red floating. -2 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
So
8
8
mana.
red.
That's 8. There's your overload.
These are some draws.
Yep. Yeah, they sure are. Yeah, so kill all your stuff is what Ketter's saying. And kill all your stuff is, I mean, you have to sacrifice the Judge's Familiar.
Yeah. But
It's obviously not like this big deal, but the extra 2 mana could actually end up doing something.
I mean, he can dump it into the weird if nothing else.
And that's what he's going to do. So
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean,
that's a lot of damage.
this was a really swingy turn.
Yeah. So Canada's draw was good, and Ketter's draw was better. My goodness.
I mean, I think it had to be Nykthos too. I don't think just a regular land does it. 'Cause
Yeah.
that Judge's Familiar in play. Even if he draws a land there, he can only generate 6. But since it's Nykthos, it gets to be a trillion.
Yeah, so what you're saying is Nykthos is a good card.
Well, Nykthos is a combination with, colored mana permanents.
Nykthos is the card I'm most scared of. Here's a Master of Waves. It's just making 2 creatures. Yeah, he's just... I'll show you a Stormbreath Dragon, an extension of the hand. Ketter, your 5th seed, who has not lost yet this weekend. He's still undefeated. He is moving on to the semifinals tomorrow morning.
Not a shabby mulligan.
Canada.
Not a bad mulligan that game.
No. Congratulations to Kent Ketter, Red White Devotion. We've got at least one of those moving on here, as we do have another one